It's done. De'Aaron Fox got traded for Zach LaVine. It's been a wild night so far. I've just been sitting here waiting for this trade, and throughout the past couple of days, it felt more and more likely that Zach LaVine would be involved. It felt like either LaVine or Ingram, and so the Kings they got LaVine, and they got LaVine 3 first round picks, 3 second round picks, City Sissoko. They got off of the Kevin Herter contract. Honestly, I expected worse. I expected worse. Maybe my expectations were so low, and that's what makes this an okay deal. It was always clear that the Kings front office wanted to win now. And so to win now, I mean, Zach LaVine, he might be the best player you could have gotten for De'Aaron Fox in this situation. Does that mean it was a good deal? No. But he might have been the best player. And look, if you ignore any health problems with Zach LaVine, you can easily talk yourself into this. 24 points per game this season, 4.5 assists. He's shooting 44.5% from three. He's shooting 51% from the field as a mainly jump shooting player. He's taking 7.3 3-point attempts per game. You can imagine him and Sabonis developing this insane chemistry. The Kings need 3-point shooting. You can talk yourself into it, but the problem is there's a few things that you can't ignore. First of all, the injury history. I mean, if he can stay healthy, that's one thing, and if he can't, that's another. And that's something that obviously we don't know right now. It's a flip of the coin, and hopefully he stays healthy. And then that could make this an okay deal. But he's a 29-year-old with health problems, and he's on a massive deal. 43 million this season, 46 next season, player option for 49 million this season after that. And then the Kings are bringing in 3 first-round picks. And this is really where it gets disappointing. The Spurs, what did the Spurs give up to get De'Aaron Fox? I mean, the Bulls gave up more just to get off salary. The Spurs giving up a 2025 Charlotte pick that's heavily protected that will most likely become second-round picks because the Hornets suck. There's a 27 Spurs pick and there's a 31 Minnesota pick. Great, that Minnesota pick could be great if Minnesota just falls off by 2031. But that's 2031. And so then you get 3 second-round picks, 25 Chicago, 28 Denver, our own 28 second-round pick back from the Bulls. Or is that from the Bulls? I don't even know. But it's wild how little the Spurs actually had to give up here. And so where does this leave the Kings? Zach LaVine coming in, De'Aaron Fox going out. Zach LaVine coming in, okay, he's a very similar player to De'Aaron Fox, honestly, in terms of how he's going to play on this team, at least from an offensive standpoint. Malik Monk is still going to be a ball handler. You're going to have Zach LaVine, who's going to be playing well off Sabonis. I'm sure he's going to be the backcourt partner. I mean, you really did just swap out Fox for Zach LaVine, and then you have draft capital. So what the Kings need to do is use that draft capital because the Kings, they want to win now. And so if you want to win now, maybe this was the best you were going to get. I don't know. It would have been a lot better if you could have gotten Atlanta's pick from the Spurs. It's like, how did we not get that pick? I don't know. How did maybe we not get a better young player? I don't know. But you have to use this draft capital well because we're sitting here. It's like you can't be done. We're sitting here with the exact same issues. So now, like, swapping out Fox for LaVine isn't even that big of a deal because you have the exact same issues that you did before. And maybe even heightened because Zach LaVine is not as good of a defender as De'Aaron Fox. He's bigger, I guess. So that's a positive. He's still athletic, but the injuries have, not helped him there. And so, okay, you've acquired this draft capital now. It could have been better, but it's not. That's the reality of the situation. You have this draft capital. So now you got to use it because you're obviously going in. You're obviously trying to make it work right now. So you got to use this draft capital to balance out this roster because you still only have 7 playable players. It's nice to get off the Kevin Herter contract. And I could see Zach LaVine playing in a heightened Kevin Herter role from the original Beam Team season. Kevin Herter coming around those dribble handoffs, hitting threes. Like Zach LaVine is just Kevin Herter on steroids. So I could see that being great. And if I have this correct, the Kings are actually getting off some money in this deal. So that means they have space to be able to take more money back. The Kings cannot be done. They just can't be done. I think what's really disappointing about this deal is that Zach LaVine has been rumored with the Kings for a while. He's been rumored for a while. The Kings could have probably gone and gotten him in the offseason if they wanted to. They definitely could have, and they didn't. They could have paired him with De'Aaron Fox, but they didn't, and they waited, and they put themselves in a worse position. If they would have made a move in the offseason, you wouldn't be in this position. This deal, it's really not the worst you could have gotten in this situation. It's not the worst, but it could have been so much better if the front office didn't put themselves into this position. And so that's why they better make a move by the trade deadline that really takes this team to the next level. They have to, or else there's just no point in keeping them. This is do or die for the front office. This move is not what saves the front office from getting fired. There has to be more. You know, it's going to take time to fully really digest this deal. What I do know is that I'm thankful for what De'Aaron Fox gave to the Kings. I mean, he came here, he embraced being a King, he embraced Sacramento, he embraced this as his home. He promised to take us to the playoffs. He did that. From that game-winning putback against the Heat to all the way to the 60-point game against the Timberwolves, he gave us great moments as Kings fans, bringing us to the playoffs, having an incredible playoff series, playing through a broken finger. That stretch in the 21-22 season where he just was going crazy, taking over at the end of every game, especially games against the Pelicans. That's the stretch that convinced me that he was going to be the guy, that he really was the star to take the Kings places, and that he was someone who you could rely on as a number one scorer. And then he went on to win Clutch Player of the Year and really showed that was legit. Went on to make All-NBA, just like everything that he accomplished in Sacramento, I am thankful for. He almost was the all-time games played leader in Sacramento. Would have been, obviously, if he didn't get traded here. He would have by the end of this season, of course, barring injury. He was just an easy guy to root for. Always seemed like a genuine guy. It hasn't always been like that in Sacramento. It hasn't always been easy to root for some of the players that have come through here. No, I'm not talking about DeMarcus Cousins, because I know some people will think that. I'm not. But he was just such a fun player to root for. He is one of the most fun players in the NBA because of his speed, because of his ability to change direction, because of his ability to change speeds, his ability to hit the midi, his ability to finish inside. Going from Super Saiyan early on to Buzzcut Fox, he was the face of this franchise, and it won't be the same without him. And no matter what, I'm rooting for him in San Antonio, except for in 2027 when we need their first round pick to be good. It really just is funny. Here we are, the Chicago Bulls of the West, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, a non-shot blocking offensive all-star center. And there was a time where that Bulls team actually worked. There was a time. And really the difference is they had some better defenders around those guys than the Kings do right now. And so that's what the Kings need to, of course, get to work on here before the trade deadline. It's just such a weird trade to me. And obviously, like I said, it's going to take time to digest. And my thoughts will no doubt change on this. But just instant reaction, it just feels like we just haven't gone anywhere. But now we just don't have Fox. Like it feels like we haven't moved. It feels like nothing's changed. And maybe we got slightly worse because we don't have De'Aaron Fox as a defensive player. You still have a bad defensive backcourt. You still have DeMar defensively. You still have Sabonis and his defensive limitations. You still don't have any depth. And so that's what I'm really worried about, because if the Kings are just going to stay in kind of the same spot that they already were, then we just lost the face of the franchise for kind of nothing. And I get it. He was going to leave. So you have to get something. But the Kings are really just now locked in for the next 3 years, of course, barring trades. But you have Zach LaVine for this year and then 2 more years. You have Sabonis for this year and 3 more years. DeRozan this year, 2 more years. And those are really the guys I'm looking at. LaVine and DeRozan, which is just hilarious. Like, how did we get here? LaVine and DeRozan. Those guys have 2.5 seasons on their contract. So that's kind of the timeline that we're working with here. Another thing the Kings did is open up a roster spot because J-Mac also went out in that trade. So Fox, J-Mac, Kevin Herter, you're only bringing in Zach LaVine and City Sissoko. So you open up a roster spot. First of all, we don't know what's going to happen. They're going to make another trade. They have to make another trade. Isaac Jones should get a roster spot. That's one thing I know for sure. The thing that is just so odd about this trade, like I said, is like it just feels like you're in the same position. It would have made more sense to trade Fox and get the defensive wings and just try to build around Monk and Sabonis and DeMar, give Keegan some more offensive opportunity. And yes, you need to replace Fox's scoring somewhat. There's no doubt about that. But I just feel like you kind of already saw where you were. You saw where you were with Fox's scoring. And so I feel like either you needed to upgrade and get someone even better, that wasn't going to happen, or you needed to downgrade and just try something different, mix it up, and see if you can win some games defensively with this team and just get better and become a better all-around team. But I don't know. I keep saying this. We just need to know what they're going to do by the trade deadline. We need more than this. So we can judge this deal, but we also have to keep in mind that there should be more to this. And look, I'm excited. A healthy Zach LaVine running around the perimeter with Domantas Sabonis passing to him sounds fun. That sounds really fun. And I can absolutely talk myself into, having fun watching this team. Absolutely. LaVine has been a more efficient scorer than Fox this season. And honestly, LaVine and Fox right now have similar injury issues, Fox with his hand, LaVine, I think it's a foot thing. But man, it's just crazy. Just a couple of years ago, where the Kings were finally making the playoffs, De'Aaron Fox leading us in that moment, leading us to the playoffs and going crazy in the playoffs. I mean, he carried us offensively in the playoffs. You had Mike Brown there, Kevin Herter. I haven't even talked about him, but Kevin Herter going crazy that year. And then just a few years later, it's so different. It's so different. And Kevin Herter, like my twin is gone. I'm sad that my twin is gone. Am I actually, sad that Kevin Herter isn't on the Kings anymore? No, but Kevin Herter did provide us with some great moments, and he was instrumental in breaking the playoff drought. He absolutely was instrumental. He was one of maybe the fourth best player on that team. But now you look at the top four of the Kings roster: LaVine, Sabonis, DeRozan, Monk. I mean, that's not really a winning top four. It's not. In this front office, they haven't made the right moves. They absolutely haven't made the right moves, because getting Zach LaVine could be fine, and he could be a piece to build around for the next few years. But it's the fact that you also have Malik Monk, and you still have DeMar DeRozan. And so now, not only do you have a bad defensive backcourt, you have an awful defensive backcourt. Because Fox was on and off, but he could lock up. Fox could absolutely lock up, and he can make a difference defensively. Now, the defense is going to be atrocious to watch. And I'm just not sure how you can sit here and be like, yeah, this front office from where we were 2 years ago to now, I'm not sure how you can say that they should still have their jobs at this point. But you're obviously not going to make a front office switch at the trade deadline, so you're going to see how this goes. But Zach LaVine, he signed an offer sheet with the Kings once upon a time. He was almost a King. I don't know if I can say almost, because maybe it wasn't really almost, but he signed with the Kings, and so it comes full circle. What's next? Kuzma? Is that going to finally come full circle? And LaVine being reunited with DeMar, that comes full circle. Time is a circle. I just can't stop staring at this roster. I can't stop staring at this roster and being just like, what is this? What is this? Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk. What is that? That's a crazy lineup. That's a crazy lineup. I think if the Kings got that 25 Atlanta pick from the Spurs, I would feel so much better about this deal. Because then I would feel like you're replacing Fox with someone who's just as good of a scorer offensively. And then you're also adding a pick that you could either make in a stacked draft that could be really good with all the problems Atlanta has had, or you could trade that and get someone really good. But just the lack of value from the draft capital is really what kills this deal. Because again, if you were going to go for a win now move, Zach LaVine, probably your best option if you were going to go after a single player that could replace De'Aaron Fox. But it's just that lack of draft capital, how little the Spurs really had to give up when you look at it for Fox. You couldn't get one good pick. Maybe that 31 Minnesota pick turns out to be good. You couldn't get your pick swap back. How do you not get your 31 pick swap back from the Spurs? We're going to suck in 2031, and the Spurs are going to be laughing at us as they have Fox and Wemby together. Like, man, that's tough. Oh, and I didn't even I honestly didn't realize until right now that the Bulls got their 25 first round pick back from San Antonio. I think that might be the best pick of the deal, and it goes to the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls took on some bad salary, don't get me wrong, so they deserve some compensation, but they're also getting off Zach LaVine, and they get probably the best first round pick of the deal. I mean, come on. I just think there are a few ways to view this deal, and when you view it right now with where the Kings are at, they needed to make a trade, they needed to make something happen. Zach LaVine's not a bad option. When you zoom out and you look at the totality of the last few years, it looks so bad on the front office. You could have had Zach LaVine before if you wanted him without giving up Fox. I mean, there just are so many moves, so many what ifs, but that wasn't the reality of the situation, and so now here the Kings are. And there's just, Sean Cunningham just tweeted, trade deadline is Thursday, and I've been told the Kings are aggressively continuing their pursuit of adding to this season's roster. Sure, we've heard that before. What does Monty McNair love saying? Be aggressive but disciplined. Like, isn't that what he always says? Yeah, we've heard it before. I'll believe it when I see it. Do I believe that the Kings probably should have just torn it down and focused long term? Yeah, probably. But that's not what they were doing. So looking at it now, I mean, the best thing you could do is trade someone from your top four, and you're not trading Sabonis, and you just got Zach LaVine, so you're not trading him. So honestly, the best thing you could do is trade DeRozan or Monk, and I mean, that sucks, especially if it's Monk, just because of his, like, Monk's amazing and his contract is so good. But I don't think they'll do that. But I just think when you look at the core, you can't have four guys that are going to start that don't really play that much defense. The one thing that I'll kind of end on is, look, I'm looking forward to watching this team. I am. Any change is exciting. And Zach LaVine and the shooting that he comes in and provides should be super fun, especially paired with Sabonis. If you maybe 5 years ago put this roster in front of me, with what I know about the players and how they are right now, and you told me, like, do you want this? I'd be like, yeah, So that's kind of the way you have to look at it. Just got to have fun with it. Zach LaVine's an all-star. Zach LaVine, or was an all-star, a former dunk contest champion. The Kings could be very good pairing Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, and whatever other moves they make with the guys they already have. The one guy I really wanted was Jeremy Sohan. Imagine if the Kings could have somehow gotten Jeremy Sohan out of this deal. I never thought it was going to happen because he pairs well with Wemby. But man, if the Kings could have gotten Sohan, then we would have been on to something with that defense that Sohan provides. But hopefully, Kings make another move soon. Hopefully, no matter what happens, the front office is fired. And hopefully this Kings team can make a playoff push here. No matter what, with whatever happens next, I will be right back here to talk about it. So I will see you guys then. Peace.